I grew up in Marysville, Michigan, which is just outside of Port Huron, Michigan. Started playing hockey about 3 or 4 years old over in Point Edward, Canada, because there wasn't any rinks in Port Huron. In the early 60s, Port Huron built a rink called McMorran Arena, and they had an international team called the Port Huron Flags that used to play up there. 5-6 years after the rink at McMorran opened, Detroit Red Wings started doing their training camp up there, so that sort of elevated the interest a little bit higher, and there's a group of us kids that used to play, they call us rink rats, so we were at the rink all the time. My dad was from Detroit, so I had been down to Olympia a couple times, so Detroit was always sort of our go-to team. Been a season ticket holder for 50 years, I guess, this year. So we have a special spot in our heart for Detroit. I've traveled the whole world playing with some of the best players in the world, and a lot of people don't get those experiences. Of all the people that I've met, Dave Lewis, I don't know if I should even talk about him. No. Probably one of the greatest guys I think that exists. He used to run these fantasy camps. They're called, at that point in time, the Detroit Red Wing Fantasy Camp. The whole camp was sort of about supporting the community, but giving players the opportunity to be on the ice with real NHL players. And at the end, he had a charity that he was working with. He just wanted to raise some money, do some things. Life in the NHL and life as a coach is pretty crazy. So we got talking and told him I was involved with a charity, and it happened to be the Make-A-Wish Foundation of Michigan. So our second camp, I went again, and Make-A-Wish was sort of the charity that we worked with, and remained that way for 20 years. We did the whole thing following through the NHL to Boston and LA and different things. And he got into Europe. First thing in Europe was Igor Leonov, and Sergei and a few guys said, we should do something like this in Russia. Along comes Nick Lindstrom and Cornwall and say, oh, we should do something in Sweden. So we did probably 5 camps in Stockholm, Sweden. We went to Nick Lindstrom's hometown, Västerås, and he met us and took us to this little Swedish pub kind of things where I had my first test of real Swedish meatballs. I mean, imagine that, sitting there with Nick Lindstrom, me and Dave and him. It's just crazy, right? So, I mean, especially for a guy from Detroit, taught me more about respect of people and friendships. I've got friends in Moscow, I've got friends in Sweden, I've got friends in Norway, I've got friends in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And people come and people go, but you always have your friends forever. My name is Mark Decker. This is my Hockeytown moment.